terms of child trafficking, we know trafficking is real. We know it has real victims. No one is denying that. But these films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites, and only people like Tim Ballard and only people like Jim Caviezel, and by extension, only people like the ticket buyer can help bring these trafficking rings down. So there's a very participatory element. You're not just going to see a movie, you're just killing 2 hours on a hot day. You are helping bring down these pedophile rings and save children. Now, it's not true, but it's a very comforting and it's a very warm feeling to have.
It's odd how raising awareness is only a good thing if you're doing it for, say, Black Lives Matter in 2020. No matter how many cities were vandalized and businesses ruined with lack of compensation. God forbid they attempt to raise awareness with a film that has a very real issue in it. No underlining QAnon tones in it, just CNN making up bullcrap as per usual. Now listen, there's no harm in raising awareness, even if you're just changing your profile picture for a week. Every little bit will help. I mean, just look at how much people will support things if you do raise awareness. So isn't it an overall net positive, no matter who watches the movie, no matter how alt-right they are, no matter how alt-left they are? No one should be against this film. I didn't know what to expect when I went to the theaters to watch The Sound of Freedom. Some would say this film is for boomer dads who want to feel good for 2 hours, or a movie which is catered to QAnon conspiracy theorists, which if I'm a 40-year-old Facebook mom news anchor, or just a regular person, I would have no clue what the hell QAnon even is. I still don't even know what the hell QAnon even is. So I can get around some conspiracies. And this one is basically a conspiracy where the people most in power, aka elites, are sexually abusing kids and turning them into pink powder to use as toppings on their pizza to stay younger, which is where the Pizzagate conspiracy came from. Just kidding, but that's sort of the gist of it. The Sound of Freedom couldn't be any further from those. I watched this movie with my girlfriend and her best friend, which they were both crying for a very large portion of the movie. I'm not gonna lie. It had me swallow a few lumps in my throat and a bit of mental coaching for me not to let tears roll down my eyes. By no means did I ever get an ounce of political messaging from The Sound of Freedom. Unless the messaging is child abuse bad. There's always some sort of messaging in movies, I know that. So some could have went over my head. But there was nothing super blatant, which you always get in mainstream Marvel or Netflix films. Although it was produced by Angel Studios, which I heard is basically a bunch of Mormons, there was no repetitive God this or God that in the movie. I was counting in my head how many times they would bring up God. There was one time where Jim Caviezel said, "God's children are not for sale."
Hey, I'm a normal human guy. Could I buy one of your children? God's children are not for sale!
Which, okay, even if you're a freaking atheist with a bulletproof vest on, you would still feel pretty safe from that underwhelming quote, which is repeated once again at the end of the film, after the credits, which he also adds that most people who are trafficked nowadays are in fact children, and consumers of sex traffic are mostly from the United States. I'm not sure if it's just because it's highly documented in the US, or the Western world is truly just a bunch of morally corrupted degenerates, like we're always told. There was another time they mentioned God. I had to look it up since I forgot, but he said, when God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate. I know. It's horrible how Mormons could put God in their movies. Like, what the hell are they trying to do, brainwash an entire generation? The indoctrination gets even worse. They apparently quoted the Bible, and that shit went way over my head. Here's the quote. "Better a millstone be hung around your neck and you be cast into the sea than you should ever hurt these little ones." End quote. Which is pretty dark for the Bible, but I can totally get around that quote. There are a lot of people who are sexually abused who later in life turn out to be an abuser. It's almost like an unspoken cycle. Like, how many times do predators from Chris Hansen admit that they were touched as little kids and wanted to protect the child? Ironically, by going into their house and touching them. Jokes aside, The Sound of Freedom is a movie that follows Timothy Ballard, an American anti-human trafficking activist and author. He is the founder and former CEO of Operation Underground Railroad. It's a non-profit, United States-based anti-sex trafficking organization. It has conducted multiple sting operations, some outside the United States, and donated technological and monetary resources to law enforcement agencies to combat sex trafficking. The organization has gained heaps of popularity since The Sound of Freedom, which is kind of odd that CNN said that the ticket buyers kind of deceived into making themselves feel better like they're actually doing something. Because if CNN and their viewers support anything, it's that raising awareness is one of the most important things you can do to begin ending the issue at hand. Like I said, the movie's a tearjerker. Not only for the story it tells, but for the shocking reality of the worldwide issue that many children fall prey to. I've never felt bored while watching it, so it does a good job in keeping you entertained the whole way through. Most of the characters, except for the pedos and traffickers obviously, are very likable, even Jim's wife. I've noticed that there are some movies where the guy is trying to do the right thing, like a detective for example, trying to solve a cold case, or a football coach, and at the height of him being most invested, his wife leaves him, or she's like a second obstacle to overcome. There was none of that with his wife. He just needed to save children, and her supporting that fully. The only obstacle Tim needs to fight against, other than the traffickers, is his own boss, who can't afford to let him work outside of the United States without mudding it up to his higher-ups, or straight up lying to them to let Tim work outside of the US borders and get funding. I'm not going to get into the actual movie itself too much, but it was a genuinely good watch. Even without all the hype surrounding this movie, I think my girlfriend and I would still love it. There were a lot of parts that kept you to the edge of your seat. In every movie that's based on a true story, there are some scenes that just didn't happen. I don't know the full story, but the ending seemed a little dramatized in the way where you would go like, I wonder if this actually happened. It seems highly intense. But that only came in mind for a bit, and my suspension of disbelief kicked in to enjoy the rest of that scene. Still a very good movie. If you want to raise awareness other than changing your profile picture to something, this is the way to do it too. Without talking about the actual movie itself, I think it's something that everyone could watch and enjoy. That is, unless you're a soulless Redditor or a pedophile or something. Or you're just a person with your head a little too far left and you think that everything that's slightly right-winged is bad. I mean, I was looking up why people are even against this movie, and they were all saying it's because it's right-wing propaganda. I mean, could you fucking believe that? These people sound so brainwashed, it's unreal. And it's based on QAnon right-wing conspiracies, and all these conspiracy theorists made and watched the movie and they all love it. Like as if they shovel every CNN talking point into their mouths for breakfast and spit it out all over people without actually taking a step back for a moment and thinking for themselves. Anyways, the only reason why I'm getting so political about this movie is that everyone turned it into politics. This movie was originally about child sex slavery. That's it. Anyways, I'm gonna go into my room and cry for a bit, so I'll see you guys later.